Hello everyone, Rawfish here, and we're back with CMG Acads Episode 3. Today we'll be covering some materials, some prepping, and making a render in general. This will be a much more fun lesson than what we have been teaching recently, and I promise you if you don't like this, well, you can always just leave a dislike. But anyway, let's start. So I log into my Minecraft world, and as you can see here, there's a beautiful, beautiful sun. The water is much more nicer looking. And then the grass also moves, shimmers. Now, we'll be recreating that inside our Blender world. This is already a pre-made scene that I set up. Whilst I was filming this video, I realized the map that I was using was actually quite, well, large for Blender to handle. It would really lag my PC quite a lot, so I decided I would make this tutorial before I started recording, instead of starting from scratch. If you would like me to start from scratch, leave a comment and I'll maybe record myself but with no audio, just to save my PC from dying. And you can probably also hear that my PC fans are starting to whir a little. Anyways, let's get started. Now, so you have imported your world. Amazing. And then, in the previous tutorial, they showed you how to get these nice textures by doing something called prepping. Now, what's next is we're now going to tell you how to do the more beautiful things, like the water I showed you in Minecraft, the grass, and some better lighting. Now, this can usually be accomplished using 3 methods. 1, materials. 2, compositing. And 3, lighting. 2 and 3 usually go together very well. Now then, let's get started. You should have already taken your world, press Tab into edit mode, press P by material so that it would separate the world. If you haven't done that, go do that right now. Now then, select your water. What you will now do is go into shading, and then you'll do a glass BSDF, a math node. Note, even though it says add right here, trust me, I got very, very confused when I first started, and well, I kept writing add, and I never saw this until later one of my seniors told me about it. Now, once you add the glass, the add, get a material output, and then plug the add to the displacement and glass to the surface. Afterward, add a noise texture. Plug the factor into the value, and then you should get something like this. Play with these values. To get the water you like, you can play with the scale. As you can see, it looks much more bumpier the more scaled you get. You can play with the detail, and you can make it really detailed, but really kill your computer. You can play with the roughness, and as you can see, it looks more dull the lower it gets. The distortion, which is pretty self-explanatory. It distorts the water. Now, you may have noticed that I deleted these 2 extra nodes, and that is because I want to show you something really cool that I wish I had learned before. Do something called Control T. Now, if this doesn't work for you, this is because, well, you didn't enable the add-on named Node Wrangler. This was covered in the last tutorial by the teacher Tianerad. Anyway, the reason you would want to do this is because these are what control, how would I say this? It won't affect the scale, detail, roughness, distortion, or all these values, but what it will affect is the movement. As you can see, it looks more and more, it looks like it's moving. However, it isn't changing these values. we could definitely do water by scaling it. But honestly, as time goes on, you can see it becomes more and more detailed. I'll replay that for you one more time. 10, 66. Now, that ain't cool. The viewer is gonna think, yo, 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 yo. Pause right here. Why is this becoming more and more detailed as time goes on? So what you'll want to do is get the values that you would like and mess with these values. Now, something I would have liked to know back then is these values, the rotation, they really help in, how do I say it, the direction. So let's say if you want to have a kind of a windy scene, and you wanted to point it, okay, I'm not good with directions, but let's say the wind was blowing this way and you wanted the water to go this way, you would just animate this. Now you're probably asking, the raw fish, how do I animate it? Awesome question. Go to animation. Okay, I'm actually a little scared for my PC. That's why I took a tiny deep breath right there. But anyway, go into the shader editor and then press I. And you'll see these two keyframes pop up. Now, what you'll want to do is go to something like, actually, you'll want to go very, very far because this thing moves very, very fast. So let's press I. And now, let's play it a little. And as you can see, it's still very, very fast. So, yeah, keep in mind, when I first did my animation, I made this mistake and the water was moving incredibly fast. When I was a noob, I still didn't really understand why it was moving fast until another one of my seniors actually told me, well, water shaders move quite particularly fast, so you might want to space it out. There we go. Much more beautiful. And it's kind of flowing it down the river also. Alright, enough of that. Now, this was something I wanted to point out to you guys personally because this was one of my most memorable parts when I was still learning. What you'll want to do is you go into Add Modifier, and then you'll try to find Distortion. Or is it Displace? There we go, Displace, sorry. Now if you play it, it doesn't really do anything. You're going to say, the raw fish, it's not moving, what's wrong with you? You lied to us, you suck, thank you. But what you'll want to do is you want to go press New Cloud Texture. Good. Then what you'll want to do is then go back into the modifier and do that. I'm kidding. Don't do this unless you want to make the grass go crazy inside your scene. What you actually want to do is you'll take coordinates, put it to object, and then, now here's where the fun part begins, where everything starts looking really beautiful. Press Shift A, and then usually a lot of people like to parent it to empties. I actually parent it to something else, but for the sake of this tutorial, I guess I'll use empties. If you are wondering, I actually always put it on a plane. But anyway, let's go into empty, plane axis. And then, now I don't know if Tianerad showed you in the last tutorial, but what you can do is you can search for the plane axis, the empty, press it, and then you see this cursor here. Actually, I think I taught you this. You can press Shift S, selection to cursor, and boom, you'll get it. Now you're thinking, what does an empty have to do with anything? Now, what you'll do is you'll take this, press it again, go back into the modifier, and then come over to the empty, take this eyedropper, press this, the empty, and now, this is where the really fun part begins. I'm actually very excited to show you this. Come on, there we go. And wow, why don't you look at that? Your grass is now moving. Now then, something I learned from David RB is that the more you subdivide this, the more organic it looks. So let me take this, a subdivide. And then if you look at, oh no, our scene is already looking pretty laggy, guys. But if you look at it now, it looks much more organic. For Minecraft animations, I wouldn't suggest going too many subdivisions. The more subdivisions you have, the more slower your scene becomes. To show you a better example, let me revert back to when these weren't subdivided. Let's move these plane axes. On the x-axis, let's just say, hold on, let me keyframe this first. GX, let's move this to here. I, keyframe rotation scale. See, beautiful FPS. But then, if we subdivide this a bunch, you'll see it dramatically decreases 5.7. So, if you really want it, go for it. But I would suggest not doing this unless you have a very powerful PC. Now then, let me go back so that we don't explode any PCs. And now, let's get to lighting the world. If we go back, we can see it looks very beautiful. There's a shining sun. The lighting looks immaculate. Is that the word they use? Yeah, immaculate. What we'll now do is we'll go here, press this, and press these. By default, Blender will have these two unchecked, this and this. Now then, what I really love to do for my renders and animations is I like to have an afternoon setting. So usually I take a reference picture off of Google and then I'll look at it, and normally I would see a lot of leaves blowing, but what was common in every single photo was that it was orange. It was orange, it was common. So what I did here was I added two suns, and then I went to here and I changed it to orange, changed the power, and I went to this other sun I change the color, the strength, angle, and that. Hold on, I think that actually might have been a point light. Nope, it was the sun. Oh no, this was a point light. Sorry. So let me just explain. This is a point sun spot area. These two are suns, and this is an area. But anyway, so looking at it, it looks quite beautiful. I mean, we got the sun shining, it's orange, but let's take it a step further. What if we wanted more? I'm going to show you how we can improve this even more. So let's go to compositing. And this was my node setup. A lot of the teachers here will probably call me a noob, and it is true. I'm probably not fit to teach this because I don't know too much about nodes. But like the editors have said, it's like Legos. You just gotta put it together. At first, it looks ugly, but then when you put it all together, it looks beautiful. So then, let's actually render this out to just show you what will happen. F12. Now, as you can see here, what I wanted to go for was there was a tiny bit of glare inside these, and it formed this beautiful, beautiful kind of, I don't know how you would call it, but you see these little dots here. That was made using the glare node right here. Now, if you notice, it's changed for a split second. At first, it looked less contrasted and much more brighter, but now it's much more dark, much more orangey, and it looks like the sun is really, really setting on them. Now, that is where the color correction actually came in. So I changed the shadows a little bit here. Let me show you what would have happened if I had worse shadows. As you can see, it looks a little bland. So I set it a little higher so that you can really feel those shadows and really feel like the afternoon, or not the afternoon, but the sun is setting. And then I mess with the shadows again, except in the gamma. Now, if I'm going to be honest with you, there are a lot of values you can mess with here to make it look even more beautiful. But for now, I will only mess with these because I do not want to confuse your minds and possibly make myself look like an idiot in front of you when I am supposed to be the teacher. Now, as you can see here, you can actually see the render. But what if we cut off this? As you can see, it's gone. Everything. Gone. So what you must do is you must take whatever is last and you must plug it into not only the composite, but also this node called the viewer. Other people will do something where they split it, but personally, I don't see any problem with just hooking these two. But that is about it. Now, let's mess with this scene that I have guided you through. Let's make something like streaks. And let's make it something like medium. Now, as you can see, it's becoming much more glare, and you can really see it now. There are some things that, in some situations, this could be probably very good. Like, for example, when it's very dimly lit and it's a dark, and like the main characters are about to starve to death, and they only have these little lamps. However, in this scene, I really wanted to go for a much more relaxing just kind of like vibing and watching the sunset. So I decided to put it at the lowest, well, not the lowest, but make it look as relaxing as possible, having these and these. Now, another reason I also didn't want it to have that really high, really all these things is because it attracts attention. So the human eye usually goes for the most brightest of things. What you will want to do is you'll want to make what you want to stand out the most. You see, these things stand out way too much. And if I were, let's say I wasn't the creator of this, I would definitely watch this. My eyes would go here instead of all this first. So that is just something to keep in mind. Now, that about concludes it for episode 3 of CMG Acads. I really hope these tutorials are helping you. I wish you luck on your Blender journey if you are still here, and happy blending. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day.